The call that changed everything. The morning sun poured through the glass walls of Sundar Pichai's home office in Palo Alto. It was quiet. Too quiet. He sipped his black tea, his fingers resting lightly on a half-open laptop, his mind still, thinking about the call from the previous night. It wasn't a normal call. It was unexpected, formal, and strangely urgent. The voice on the other side had said only this: "Mr. Pichai, former President Donald Trump wishes to meet you privately. He requests you bring your son." Sundar didn't respond at first. Had simply closed his eyes and taken a long breath. It had been years since he had even seen Trump. The last time was during a tense panel in Washington, one that ended in silence and tight handshakes. There had been no further meetings, no words exchanged. Until now. His son Arav was only 14, gentle, observant, and wise beyond his age. While most children his age drowned in gadgets and games, Arav was different. He loved books, handwritten, notes and stories his grandfather used to tell about India's quiet revolutions. "Baba, Ada," Arav had asked after overhearing the call. "Why does he want to meet us?" Nar smiled, but it was a tired smile. "I don't know. But we'll find out." By noon, the private jet arranged by Trump's team had landed quietly at a secluded strip outside New York. Sundar and RF stepped off, dressed simply, no suits, no logos. Just a father and son carrying a leather satchel and something wrapped in white linen. The air was thick with tension. It's not from fear, but from unknown possibilities. They were picked up by a silent driver who only nodded and opened the door of the black SUV. Inside, the silence grew louder. Even Arav could feel it. The car didn't take them to Trump Tower. Instead, it took them to a quiet estate in upstate New York. Trees surrounded the property like a wall of nature, almost guarding what was inside. The entrance stood Trump, not the showman seen on TV, not the man shouting on stages. Here was a quieter, older version. His hair was less golden, his eyes more sunken. But his handshake was still firm. "Thank you for coming," he said, voice low. "Please, come inside." The living room was nothing like Sundar expected. Gold. No loud paintings, just bookshelves. A grandfather clock. A large, unfinished jigsaw puzzle on a coffee table. They sat. There were no cameras. No press. No advisors. Just the three of them. "I won't waste your time," Trump began, looking directly at Sundar. "I'm not the same man I used to be. I've been thinking a lot lately. About choices. About people I may have misunderstood or ignored." Arav looked at his father, puzzled. "Why us?" Sundar finally asked, his voice calm but firm. Trump nodded slowly, then took out an old wooden box from a drawer, placed it gently on the table between them. "This was given to me by someone I respected," he said, "but I think it was never meant for me. Not fully." He opened it. Inside was an envelope. Not money, not a document, but a letter. "Before we go any further," Trump said, "I want to hear your story. The real one. From you, not the media. Not the interviews. The one you never told." His fingers touched the edge of the white linen bundle they had carried. "Are you sure?" he asked. Trump nodded. Sundar looked at Arav, then he began. "I was born in Chennai," he said slowly. "In a small house with no fridge. My father was an electrical engineer. He worked hard, but we had little. When I got my first computer, it changed everything. I didn't know it then, but it was the beginning of a long path. It's one filled with pain, confusion, small victories, and big moments of doubt." Arav sat still, listening to his father speak in a tone he had never heard before. It was not the voice of a CEO. It was the voice of a man remembering the weight of invisible battles. "There was a time," Sundar continued, "when I had to choose between buying books or food. And I chose books. I skipped meals. I studied under streetlights. And yet, I was happy, because hope lived in those pages." Trump didn't interrupt. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. I got into Stanford, Sundar said.
My parents
Didn't have the money for the ticket. They took out a loan. I landed here with $100 in my pocket and 2 shirts in my bag. I was invisible in a country that didn't know my name. But I kept working. I didn't chase power. I chased ideas. I tried to build things that made people's lives better. Trump's fingers tapped the side of the wooden box. He looked away for a second, perhaps to hide the flicker in his eyes. Then Sundar did something unexpected. He gently placed the linen-wrapped bundle on the table and unwrapped it. Inside was a carved stone, simple, beautiful, shaped like a flame. This was given to me by my son, Sundar said, but it's older than him. It's from my village. It symbolizes knowledge passed down with love and humility. Trump stared at it. Double quotes, I want to give it to you, Sundar said softly. Not as a gift from a CEO, but from one father to another. The room went quiet. Even the old grandfather clock seemed to pause. Trump didn't speak. His hand hovered over the stone but didn't touch it. Aarav leaned forward. We brought it because you said you've changed. Sometimes a small thing can carry big meaning. Trump finally picked it up. His fingers trembled slightly. I don't know what to say, he whispered. And then, as if the moment had not yet reached its full weight, Trump looked at Arav. What do you believe, young man? He asked. Arav looked at him without blinking. I believe everyone can change, he said. Even those who were once wrong. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full, and just as Sundar thought the meeting had reached its end, Trump said something strange. This isn't over. There's more. Much more. You deserve to know why I really called you here. Sundar looked at him confused. You see, Trump said, standing up and walking to a cabinet, this isn't just about the past. It's about a secret. One that involves both of us. And it starts with something buried. ... Something I should have told the world long ago. He opened the cabinet slowly, and inside was something that would shake everything Sundar believed about the last 20 years. The letter beneath the flamed cabinet creaked as Trump opened it. The sound was small, but in the quiet room it felt loud, almost thunderous. The weight of his silence made Sundar and Arav lean forward, every second stretching out longer than the last. The inside of the cabinet was dark, but there was something there, an old metal tin, rusted along the edges. With faded letters that barely spelled out a name, Trump took it out slowly, his hands steady but thoughtful, as if handling something fragile. He placed the tin beside the stone flame on the table and stared at it for a moment, lost in thought. This, Trump said, was given to me over 2 decades ago. Long before I knew who you were. Before your name meant anything in Silicon Valley. Sundar's eyes narrowed slightly. Arav looked up at his father, sensing his confusion. What is it? Sundar asked. Trump didn't answer immediately. He opened the tin with a soft metallic pop. Inside were several aged documents, yellowed with time. There was also a photo, blurred black and white, of a much younger Sundar standing in front of a dusty university gate in India. The same photo Sundar remembered giving to a mentor, but that mentor had passed away years ago. How did you get this? Sundar asked, the calm in his voice now lined with tension. Trump didn't flinch. You knew a man named Professor Naik, didn't you? Sundar froze. He hadn't heard that name in years. Professor Shankar Naik had been more than a mentor. He had been the first person to see greatness in Sundar when no one else did. A retired academic, soft-spoken, and almost invisible to the world, but razor-sharp in mind. He had written Sundar's recommendation letter to Stanford. He had given him advice that still echoed in Sundar's head every time he faced a difficult decision. He was a good man, Sundar said, his voice softer now. He was also, Trump said, my economics professor at Wharton, many years before you met him. Sundar blinked. Trump continued. He reached out to me shortly before he died, sent me this tin. He said I would understand why one day, and now, Sundar asked. Now I understand, Trump replied, sliding one of the documents across the table. Sundar picked it up. It was a letter handwritten in the professor's shaky handwriting. No. to whomever this finds. There are moments in life when a spark must pass from one hand to another, across time, across space, across people who may never meet. But that spark must survive. It must live. I taught two men, worlds apart in background, both brilliant, stubborn, both meant for leadership. But one lost his way chasing the roar of crowds. The other stayed quiet, building bridges of code and compassion. Both need each other. If this reaches you, do not let the noise of pride drown the whisper of purpose. Pass the flame. Sundar stared at the words for a long time, then at the stone. On the table, then at Trump. So this isn't about politics, he said slowly. No, Trump answered. It's about legacy. And maybe ... redemption. Arav looked at his father, then at Trump. Why now? He asked. Trump let out a heavy sigh. Because my time in the spotlight is fading, and maybe that's a good thing. But before it fades completely, I want to fix what I can. And this ... this was something I left broken. He looked down at his hands. I mocked you once, called you weak, foreign, soft-spoken. I thought strength came from shouting the loudest. But over time, I started to notice something. What? Sundar asked quietly. Your silence made more noise than all my words combined, Trump said. Sundar didn't respond. There was nothing to say. I watched you navigate storms, Trump continued. Scandals, hearings, pressure from all sides. You never snapped, never hit back. Not because you couldn't, but because you chose not to. The room felt heavier. Now Trump stood and walked toward a shelf on the far wall. He returned with another atoma small, velvet-covered box. He handed it to Arav. Open it, he said. Arav did. Inside was a small pin, a golden triangle with a blue center. It looked simple but elegant. What is it? Arav asked. It's from a private collection, Trump said. Only a few were ever made. Symbols given to those who shape the future in silence. Not for show, not for fame, just because they carried the weight when others wouldn't. You're giving it to us? Arav asked. No, Trump said. I'm giving it to you. Arav stared at the pin. He didn't understand fully, but he felt its weight in his hands. Then Trump turned to Sundar. There's one more thing, he said. The real reason I called you? He walked to the window and looked out at the trees, now golden in the late afternoon sun. I'm writing. Something, Trump said. A letter. Not a political statement. Not a book. Just ... something personal. Something I want delivered after I'm gone, and I want you to be the one to hold it. Sundar's eyes widened. Why me? Trump turned around. Because you'll protect it. Because you won't use it for power or headlines. Because you understand legacy better than I ever did. What's in the letter? Sundar asked. Truth, Trump said. The word hung in the air like smoke. I'll give it to you, Trump said, but under one condition. Sundar waited. You must promise me, Trump said, that your son will read it one day. Not now, not soon, but when he's ready, when he's become the man he's meant to be. Arav looked between the two men, didn't speak. But he understood something powerful was happening. Sundar finally nodded. Double quotes. I promise, he said. Trump smiled faintly. Good, then it's yours. He reached into a locked drawer and pulled out a sealed white envelope, thick and heavy. It had no name, no stamp. Just the same carved flame symbol like the stone on the table. He handed it to Sundar. Keep it safe, Trump said. And when the time comes, let it be read. As Sundar held the envelope, he felt something shift inside him. Not just curiosity, not just suspicion, but something deeper, something that hinted at a hidden story, buried in history, waiting. To come alive then, just as the room settled into silence again, a knock came at the door. Trump's Finkelquote's face changed instantly. His smile faded. Stay here, he said quickly. Do not speak. Do not move. He walked to the door and opened it just a crack. Outside stood a man in a dark suit. His voice was low, but enough words floated in. We need to talk now. No, Trump tensed. How? A leak, the man replied. The envelope. They're coming for it. Trump turned slightly and looked back at Sundar. You need to leave now. Arav stood up. Psst. What's happening? No time, Trump said. Take the envelope. Go out the back. Don't stop. Don't look back. What about you? Sundar asked. I'll handle this, Trump said. But as Sundar took his son's hand and rushed toward the back hallway, he realized something terrible. Whatever truth the letter carried, someone powerful didn't want it seen, and they were already too close. The shadows in Pursuith's back hallway was narrow and dimly lit. Sundar moved fast, his hand firmly around Arav's wrist, the thick envelope pressed against his chest beneath his coat. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. The urgency in Trump's eyes was burned into his memory like a warning bell ringing deep inside his mind. They slipped through the kitchen, where the scent of forgotten coffee lingered in the air. Outside the rear door, the world looked deceptively peaceful. A slow wind rustled through the tall trees surrounding the estate. The sky was turning gray, like dusk had arrived too early. But inside Sundar's chest, everything felt loud. His heart, his thoughts, the invisible danger pressing closer. AARAV, single quotes us voice broke through the tension. Baba, who are they? Sundar didn't answer immediately. They reached the tree line and stepped onto a gravel path carefully hidden behind dense hedges. His voice came low, almost a whisper. People who don't want that letter seen, but why? Arav asked. Sundar slowed for a second and looked at his son. Because sometimes truth is more dangerous than lies. They continued walking, fast, stepping over fallen branches and muddy patches. Sundar kept checking his phone, but there was no signal out here. He didn't panic, he calculated. The envelope had weight more than just paper inside. Felt symbolic, alive. It wasn't about Donald Trump anymore. This letter, whatever it contained, was now a thread tying together secrets, power, and legacy. Within minutes, they reached a small road on the other side of the woods. Sundar saw an old cabin nearby, a maintenance shed, probably forgotten by everyone except the caretakers. He pushed the door open. It creaked. Inside were dusty tools, a broken chair, and a flickering light bulb hanging from a chain. They stepped in. Sundar locked the door behind them. We'll wait here for a moment, he said. I need to think. Rav sat on the broken chair, his breathing still fast. Is he in danger? He asked. Sundar didn't lie. Yes, they sat in silence. For a while, the sounds of the forest outside became louder. The cry of a hawk, the wind brushing leaves, and somewhere far off, the faint sound of tires on gravel. Sundar stood up, pulled out the envelope, and looked at the flame symbol again. His fingers traced it slowly. This symbol, it's older than I thought. You've seen it before? Rav asked. Sundar nodded. Only once. Long ago. A book Professor Nate gave me. Arav tilted his head. What book? It was called The Silent Lineage, Sundar said. A strange collection of stories about visionaries who never ruled but changed the world anyway. The flame was there. Mark, like a secret group? Arav asked. More like silent guardians, Sundar said. Just then, a noise came from outside. Sundar froze. He pulled Arav behind a tall shelf. Footsteps. One set. Deliberate. Slow. Not rushing. Not stomping someone confident. Someone who believed they wouldn't be stopped. The door handle turned. It was locked. A pause. Then a soft knock. Double quotes, Mr. Pichai. Came a voice. Male. Deep. Calm. You have something that doesn't belong to you. Sundar remained still. Arav squeezed his hand. This doesn't have to get complicated, the voice continued. Give us the envelope. We let you walk away. Sundar whispered into Arav's ear. When I say run, you run to the back. Window, climb out. Hide in the woods. What about you? Just trust me.
Out.
The voice outside grew colder. Do you know what's in that letter, Mr. Pichai? No, it's not a gift. It's a fuse. Once lit, everything burns. Countries, reputations, families. Sundar stepped forward quietly, careful not to creak the floorboards. He reached for a wrench. From the tool rack, it was heavy and cold in his hand. The doorknob twisted harder. Still locked. "We will get it either way," the voice said. "Don't make it harder." A sudden crash, a window broke on the side. Sundar turned fast. Masked figures were slipping in. He grabbed Arv and shouted, "Now!" RF bolted to the back, climbed onto a crate, and slipped out the small window into the trees. Sundar raised the wrench as one of the men stepped forward, but the intruder held up his hands. "We don't want violence," the man said. "Want the letter?" Sundar didn't move. "Then you'll have to take it." A tense silence followed. The other intruder circled him slowly, then a sharp noise. The men turned. From the outside, tires screeched. A black car had pulled up. Doors opened. Voices shouted, "Federal agents. Hands up." The intruders turned to run, but it was too late. In seconds, they were tackled, handcuffed, and dragged out of the shed. Sundar stood frozen, still gripping the wrench. A tall man in a dark coat stepped in. He flashed a badge. "Mr. Pichai, my name is Agent Miller, Homeland Security. We've been monitoring strange activity since last week." Sundar lowered the wrench slowly. "How did you know?" "Mr. Trump requested emergency surveillance after your meeting was arranged. He suspected someone might try to intercept what he was about to give you. He was right." Sundar said. AARAV ran back through the trees and hugged his father tightly. Agent Miller continued, "We need to take you both to a secure location. The people behind this are not small players. They're connected to something bigger." "How big?" Sundar asked. Miller's face darkened. "Global, historical, and very quiet." On the drive to the secure location, Sundar held the envelope tightly. He didn't open it. Not yet. He thought about Trump, about the stone flame, about the professor's letter. He thought about all the quiet hands that had passed this truth from one generation to another. Arv sat beside him, quiet, deep in thought. "Baba," he said finally, "do you regret taking it?" Sundar looked at him. "No. Some things are worth the risk." "What do you think is inside?" Arv asked. "Something that could change how people see the last 50 years, Sundar said. "Maybe more." Agent Miller turned from the front seat, "And we'll help you protect it. But be warned, once you open it, there's no turning back." They arrived at a quiet house on a hill outside the city. No neighbors, no signals. Just a generator and a room with reinforced locks. Inside. Sundar placed the envelope on a table. The room felt still. Even the air seemed to wait. ARAV stood beside him. "Should we open it?" he asked. Sundar thought for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "Not yet." "Why?" "Because once we know, everything changes." But even as he spoke those words, a deeper question stirred in him. What if this letter didn't just reveal a secret about Trump? What if it revealed something about Sundar's own past? Something he was never meant to discover. And as the night fell quietly around the safe house, a satellite phone buzzed in Agent Miller's pocket. He answered a voice. On the other end said only one thing. "He's gone. Trump disappeared." Echoes of the forgotten Flameth room fell into silence after the call. Agent Miller stood frozen, the satellite phone still pressed to his ear. His jaw tightened, eyes narrowing as if he were processing a message he never wanted to receive. Sundar noticed the change instantly. He leaned forward, voice low and deliberate. "What did they say?" Miller hesitated, then slowly turned toward Sundar and Arav. "Trump is missing. He vanished from his estate 30 minutes ago. The security team on site found no signs of struggle. Cameras were disabled. Personal communication devices were wiped clean." AARAV's eyes widened. "Was it them? The same people who came for us?" Miller gave a slow nod. "Very likely. Whoever they are, they're efficient, well-funded, and not afraid of the government."
Oh yeah.
They erased him without leaving a trace. Sundar felt a chill move through his body. It wasn't fear, it was something deeper. A weight pressing on his chest, a terrible knowing. It underestimated what they were holding. The envelope in his bag was no longer a secret. It was a target. Now Trump, the only man who might have known the full truth, had been taken. Need to move him again, Miller said to one of his agents. Now, no, Sundar interrupted. We can't keep running. There's something in this letter that connects everything. We need to understand it before we lose our chance. Miller looked skeptical. You open that letter, you might paint a target even bigger than the one you already have. I already have one, Sundar replied. So does my son. Trump. The only difference is they're willing to kill for what's in here. I need to know why. He pulled the envelope from his coat, placing it gently on the table in the center of the room. The carved flame symbol stared back at them, simple yet intense, as if it had been waiting all this time. Open it, Baba, Arav whispered. Sundar hesitated, then slowly broke the wax seal. Inside, there were three things. First, a long typed letter. Second, a folded blueprint of an unfamiliar structure. Third, a small black and white photograph of two young men standing in front of a university campus, one of them unmistakably Donald Trump, the other was Professor Nick. Sundar unfolded the letter and began reading aloud. To the one who holds this letter, you have been chosen not for your power, but for your restraint. Not for your wealth, but for your wisdom. I've carried a burden for decades. Truth hidden beneath the noise of politics, beyond the reach of the press. And now, as my time runs short, I can no longer hold it alone. Years ago, Professor Naik showed me something. Something buried beneath a university in Madras. A vault, sealed by a group of thinkers during the late 1940s. Inside that vault was a series of documents, coded designs, and philosophical frameworks. They called it the Flame Initiative. It wasn't just an academic project. It was a blueprint for an alternate model of society, one that prioritized collective growth over competition, information transparency over control, and moral integrity over ambition. Sundar stopped reading. His hands trembled slightly. AARAVs. Single quotes, his voice cracked. Are you saying that Professor Naik built something? Sundar nodded. Something powerful and hidden. He continued reading. When I was given access to it, I didn't understand its value. I thought it was idealistic nonsense. But years later, as I watched the world twist under greed and division, I realized its wisdom. I tried to bring it to light. But by then, forces, stronger than any government, had buried it again. Corporations, defense contractors, shadow networks. They called it the Burn Protocol, a silent agreement to never let the flame see daylight. And I agreed to it. I was wrong. But there is still hope. The key was never the vault. It was always the minds worthy of opening it again. And you, Sundar, are the last one I trust to carry that key. Sundar set the letter down, overwhelmed. His heart was thudding. The flame wasn't just symbolic, it was real. A vision for the future, hidden away and now threatened by people who had built empires on its absence. Agent Miller unfolded the blueprint. This looks like an underground system. Here coordinates. Madras looks like an old colonial structure, maybe repurposed. We verify it? Sundar asked. Miller already had a satellite feed loading. I can try. Give me an hour. But time, as it always did in moments like these, refused to wait. A knock rattled the silence. Then three more. Slow, deliberate, wrong. The room darkened. The generator flickered. A second knock this time. Heavier. A V froze. Sundar instinctively pulled him close. Agent Miller whispered to his men, secure the perimeter. But the third knock wasn't on the door. It was on the back wall. A wall that should have been unreachable. There inside the perimeter, Miller hissed. How? Sundar demanded. Someone leaked our location, Miller said. This place is compromised. We need to move now, Arav whispered. Before they could, the power cut completely. Darkness swallowed the room, broken only by the moonlight. Bleeding through the curtains, Miller pulled out a flashlight and scanned the wall.
Ow.
Something was wrong. A crack was forming. A hand burst through the plaster. Sundar grabbed the envelope and ran with Arav toward the back. A bullet shattered the ceiling light as masked men poured into the room. Fast, methodical. Miller's agents returned fire, but they were outnumbered. In the chaos, Sundar and Arav made it out a side exit. Ducking low, hearts pounding, they sprinted through the woods behind the house, branches scratching their arms, the envelope held tight in Sundar's grip. Shots echoed behind them, but they didn't stop. After what felt like an eternity, they reached a stream, crossed it, and climbed a steep hill that opened onto a narrow dirt road. No cars, no lights, only silence. Aarav collapsed on the ground.
Canteen?
Baba. What now? Sundar looked up at the stars. He had only one answer. We go to Madras. But how? Find a way, Sundar said. Because this is no longer about me, or Trump, or Professor Naik. This is about a future. That was buried in. The world deserves to see it. He opened the last part of the envelope. A small key taped to the back of the blueprint. Brass. Ancient. Etched with the flame. Symbol, it was real. And someone was willing to kill, to keep it. Buried. But Sundar had made his choice. The hidden vault beneath Madrasi's sun was just beginning to rise over the eastern coast of India as the flight descended into Chennai. Pale orange streaks painted the morning sky, casting long shadows over the city's ancient temples and modern towers. It had been nearly 2 decades since Sundar had walked the streets of his hometown, but the moment the plane's wheels hit the ground, a strange calm settled over him. He was coming home not for peace, but for answers. Beside him, Arav stared out of the window, watching the city stretch wide across the horizon. He could feel something had changed in his father since the moment they left the secure house in upstate New York. Sundar was no longer hesitant or cautious. He had become focused, clear, like he had finally accepted the weight he was meant to carry. They moved quickly through the airport, taking a back exit arranged by one of Sundar's old contacts in, old classmate now working in civil administration. No questions asked, no formalities. Just a quiet nod and a driver waiting outside in a nondescript white ambassador car. "Where to, sir?" the driver asked in Tamil. Sundar answered without looking up from the folded blueprint. "Georgetown, the old British Museum annex." The driver didn't reply. He simply started the engine and eased the car into the dense morning traffic as they drove. Sundar explained to Arav what he knew. Back when the British controlled this region, he began, they built underground tunnels beneath the museums and universities. Some were meant for emergency evacuations. Others were never documented. Arav leaned in. "And you think the vault is in one of those tunnels?" "It has to be," Sundar said. "Look at this corner. See this marking? It's not architectural. It's symbolic. Professor Naik once told me that the Flame Initiative had to be hidden somewhere no one would think to look. Right under knowledge itself." The car slowed as they approached the worn colonial building, its white paint faded with age, vines crawling up its sides. The museum had been closed for years, declared structurally unsound after a mild earthquake. But to Sundar, it was perfect. It's a kind of place history forgets him till someone dares to remember it. They got out and walked toward the rusted side gate, which was still locked with an ancient padlock. Sundar reached into his bag and pulled out the brass key. He looked at Arav. "Do you want to do it?" Arav nodded. He took the key in his small hand, inserted it into the lock, and turned. A loud, satisfying click echoed in the quiet courtyard. The gate creaked open. Inside, the air was thick with dust and silence. Broken glass crunched under their shoes. Faded. Posters still hung on the walls, exhibits long forgotten. The place smelled of paper, rust, and time itself. They walked through the dark halls, guided only by the faint light from Sundar's phone. Every step took them deeper into the belly of the building, past locked rooms and boarded windows. Finally, they found the panel from the blueprint. Square section of wall covered in flaking plaster, with the carved flame symbol etched into the stone near the base, just like the drawing. Here, Sundar said. He knelt and tapped the wall. It sounded hollow. Help me clear this, he said to ARV. Together, they peeled away layers of plaster, revealing a concealed hatch beneath. Combination lock sat at its center. It's mechanical, Sundar said. Old school, no electronics, no override. Arav peered at the dials. Do you think the code's in the letter? Sundar pulled it out again. There were numbers written faintly in the margin. It's not in the main text, hidden between lines. 42791. He entered them carefully. The final dial clicked. The hatch swung open. A set of narrow stairs led into darkness. Sundar turned to Arav. You don't have to come with me. I do, Arav said. Ours now. They descended. The stairs spiraled down for what felt like forever. The air grew colder, damper. They passed sealed doors, rusted pipes, crumbling bricks, until they reached a heavy steel vault door. And there it was, again carved into the center. The flame. Sundar stepped forward, heart pounding. He placed the brass key into the slot. Beneath the symbol and turned, the door groaned as it opened, revealing a circular chamber lit by a flickering generator. A bulb that must have been running off some ancient backup system. Inside the vault were rows of locked cabinets, stacked files, metal crates, and 3 central pedestals holding what looked like thick, bound manuscripts. Sundar stepped inside, overwhelmed. This is it. Arav walked up to one of the manuscripts. Its cover was leather, etched with golden text in Sanskrit. He read the title out loud. The Principles of Balanced Growth. Sundar opened another. Designs for Equitable Networks. The third was labeled Governance Without Greed. These are frameworks, Sundar whispered. Social, technological, political. Everything we've been missing. He stepped back, taking it all in. This is what they feared, he said. Not weapons, not money. Ideas. They explored further. One crate held old film reels interviews with early thinkers of the initiative. Another held blueprints for decentralized energy systems. Data on education. Models that eliminated inequality. Communications protocols resistant to censorship. And then, at the back of the chamber, a safe embedded into the wall. No lock. Just a small inscription to open. One must understand, Ra noticed a slot beneath the inscription, perfect for inserting. A piece of paper? Perhaps a code or a sentence? What do we say? He asked. Sundar thought for a moment, then remembered the professor's letter. He took the page, tore off the final line, and inserted it into the slot. Past the flame. A soft chime echoed. The safe unlocked. Inside was a recording device. And a note. Sundar pressed play. A voice crackled through the static. It was Professor Naik. If you're hearing this, then the right hands have found the flame. Remember, knowledge without humility becomes control. Pass these ideas with care. Build, don't conquer. Share, don't silence. And protect the young, they are the future's authors. The tape ended. Sundar turned to his son. We need to share this with the world. Arav hesitated. But won't that make us targets again? Sundar nodded. Yes. But staying silent would make us traitors to everything this stands for. Before they could leave, a sound echoed from above. Voices. Footsteps. Someone else was coming to ran to the door. They found us again. Sundar grabbed the most important manuscripts and the recording. Stuffing them into his bag, they turned toward the exit, just as shadows began to fill the stairs above. The gift that silenced the world's footsteps above grew louder with each passing second. The walls of the vault, once a sanctuary of forgotten truths, now echoed with the sound of boots heavy, disciplined, deliberate. Ow. Sundar knew they didn't have much time. The air had changed. The calm he'd felt just moments earlier was replaced with a tight, pressing urgency that gripped his lungs like iron. "Arav," he said quickly, "help me secure these documents." Arav nodded, sliding the old manuscripts into the hidden compartment of their bag, the one built with reinforced lining Sundar had secretly installed after their last escape. They packed the blueprint, the audio recording, and one of the books on educational reform. The rest they wrapped back in cloth and returned to their places. Sundar paused for a breath. The vault wasn't just a place of secrets now. It was a heartbeat of hope. It had waited silently, without a voice, for someone to bring it to life again. And now that moment had come. The generator bulb flickered overhead, casting sharp shadows against the round walls. Suddenly, the stairs above creaked louder. Someone was descending, not running, not shouting, just calmly walking down. It frightened Sundar more than anything. "Go," he whispered. "There's another exit. It's on the side tunnel marked Service. Follow the arrows. Take the bag and go." "No," Arav whispered back, shaking his head fiercely. "Not without you. I'm right behind you. If they catch me, they won't search a child." Sundar pulled open the side hatch built into the curve of the wall. The dust inside confirmed no one had used it in years. A faded emergency arrow still glowed faintly on the stone. "Baba." Sundar placed both hands on his son's shoulders. "You were never just a witness to this, Arav. You are part of it now. Protect it like it's your heartbeat." Arav's eyes brimmed with tears, but he nodded and ducked into the tunnel. The bag strapped tightly to his back, the hatch closed with a muted thud. Sundar turned and waited. From the stairs came a man, clean-shaven, black gloves, expression unreadable. Not military, not government. Something else, something colder. "Mr. Pichai," the man said, his voice quiet but firm. "You've seen too much." Sundar didn't move. "I've seen just enough to know what you're afraid of." The man stepped closer. "You have something that doesn't belong to you?" "Ah!" Sundar glanced once at the empty pedestal. "No." "Returned most of it. What you're really after is already gone." The man's eyes narrowed. "Where is it?" "Somewhere safe, with someone better than both of us." Sundar expected the man to raise a weapon, but he didn't. Instead, he pulled a small device from his coat. "8-tractor." He held it up. "We've been following the flame since the day it was sealed," he said. "Every decade, someone gets too close. Then they disappear, just like Trump." Sundar didn't blink. "You won't stop this. Not this time." The man studied him for a long moment. Then he spoke with quiet finality. "We already have." He pressed a button. The generator clicked, the lights dimmed, and the walls shook. Explosives. They weren't here to reclaim the flame. They were here to see. "Bury it dash again." Sundar turned and sprinted toward the side tunnel, heart pounding. The sound of crumbling rock behind him was deafening. He didn't care. He ran through darkness, every breath slicing his chest like glass. He found Arv halfway through, waiting. "You came back," Arv cried. "We don't leave each other." Sundar said. Together, they crawled through the narrowing passage. Debris rained around them as the vault above collapsed. By the time they reached the excitan old maintenance, great hidden behind a banyan tree the dawn sky had begun to break, they emerged into light. Dusty, bruised but alive. The vault was gone, but the flame had escaped. 3 weeks later, an Arv sat in a quiet room in Singapore. The documents had been scanned, copied, and distributed securely to a network of independent thinkers. Scientists, educators, and policy leaders. No media, no spectacle, just purpose. They named it the Flame Collective. Their first public message was short, just a simple video, no face shown, just Sundar's voice. For decades, a better path was hidden, not because it was flawed, but because it threatened power. Now, it belongs to everyone. The clip went viral. Millions watched. Leaders remained silent. But the people whispered. Then they began to speak. A week later, a mysterious package arrived at Sundar's door. No return address. No markings. Inside was a simple box of walnut wood. He opened it slowly. Inside a red necktie, a small pin shaped like a flame, and one note, handwritten in shaky cursive. "Thank you for carrying what I couldn't. Tell the boy." He was right. D. Sundar sat back in silence. His hands trembled. Arav walked in moments later. "What is it?" he asked. Sundar handed him the note. Arav read it, then slowly smiled. He listened. Sundar nodded. Yes, he did. Outside, the world carried on, cars honking, children laughing, birds in the trees. Life moved forward, unaware that a silent war had ended in the shadows. And yet, deep within that current of life, something had shifted. People had begun to ask different questions. Leaders had begun to listen more carefully. And somewhere, far from the noise, the truth once buried now burned gently, like a flame passed from hand to hand, heart to heart.